What's up, YouTube? How we looking? Coach Max here, back with part 2 of the big conference realignment experiment. If you want to check out part 1 to find out just what the heck we're doing here, there'll be a link in the description, but the short version is this. People always be saying that the West is stronger or the East is weaker, so we're seeing what happens if some teams swapped conferences. So far, at least according to 2K, the conferences are actually pretty balanced, leading to surprises such as Nikola Jokic being an all-star starter and MVP, and the Charlotte Hornets being a playoff team. Don't believe me? Well, check out the video then. And while you're at it, I also recommend leaving a like, leaving a comment, and subscribing to see what surprises happen in the future. Not a long warm-up today, let's get moving. Now we're going to try swapping the teams in the middle, the ones who usually have only a few wins separating them from either being a lower playoff seed or lower in the draft lottery. For most NBA teams, this is purgatory, too low to have a realistic shot at a deep playoff run, but too high to have a good shot at a draft pick that can get you to the next level. I don't actually anticipate any changes here. It's basically trading one giant obstacle for a different flavor of giant's obstacle. Maybe the West does a bit better, but I don't think they'd beat Toronto, Boston, and Philly any more than they would beat Golden State, Houston, or OKC. One thing I do like about this, though, is that the two New York teams and the two LA teams are in different conferences, so that's something interesting at least. Alright, let's start it up. Wow, so my prediction of not much change might have been a little premature. The Golden State Warriors had a bit of a bad start to the season, and partially due to that, the Oklahoma City Thunder are sitting very comfortably in that first spot in the Western Conference. But even more surprising, instead of the Houston Rockets right behind the Warriors, it's actually the Milwaukee Bucks who have a very slight advantage over them. And right behind the Rockets at 4 are the Wizards at 5 and the Miami Heat at 6. And the Sacramento Kings have broken through to take the 7th seed, followed by the Pacers with the Pistons right behind them. Pretty much the only constant here is that the Blazers are somehow falling apart, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on with this. Maybe this is a sign that the Blazers need to actually blow things up. Who knows? Meanwhile, over in the East, it's even more chaos as the Nuggets are currently sitting at the 2nd seed, and the New Orleans Pelicans have broken through to number 4, followed by the Los Angeles Lakers breaking in at 7, and the Minnesota Timberwolves at 8, with the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Clippers and the Cleveland Cavaliers all right behind them, along with the San Antonio Spurs. The Toronto Raptors have fallen all the way down to the 6th seed, and are currently behind the Orlando Magic of all teams at the number 5 spot. So the Eastern Conference is definitely very close right now, with a lot of teams battling out for that middle position. The Philadelphia 76ers are sitting pretty comfortably up at number 1. So it could really be anybody's conference, and this is actually kind of exciting to see. So as for the All-Stars, not too much interesting here. The usual first-timers of Nikola Jokic, Nikola Vucevic, and Ben Simmons are there. D'Angelo Russell also breaks through. But one name that we haven't seen all that much of, DeAndre Ayton, actually breaks through and makes the All-Star game this time around, so good on you, man. There was one high-profile trade in this scenario. The Oklahoma City Thunder sent Steven Adams and Jeremy Grant to the Heat in exchange for Hassan Whiteside and Derrick Jones Jr. You have to wonder why the Thunder actually did this, considering they were leading the conference by a considerable margin at that point in time. So either that move is going to improve them and help them maintain, or it's going to be the one that sinks them. Only time will tell. Nikola Jokic retakes his MVP spot with 22.5 points, 15.5 boards, and 8 assists. Great stat line for a great player. DeAndre Ayton is rightfully your Rookie of the Year with 19 points and 13.5 boards, just under 2 blocks as well, which is pretty impressive. Dennis Schroeder once again is your 6th Man of the Year with 17.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and just under 6 assists. Anthony Davis comes up big and wins Defensive Player of the Year with 10 boards, 1 steal, and 2 blocks a game to go with 22 points and 3 assists. Nikola Jokic also wins Most Improved with his stat line. If we check his player card, it is most likely a pretty big jump. Okay, maybe not quite as big, but when you actually average an extra 4 points and 5 rebounds and 2 assists, yeah, you pretty much kind of deserve this award in my opinion. And Brett Brown, instead of Steve Kerr, is Coach of the Year, leading the 76ers to a 59-23 record. So pretty good to see there. Your All-NBA first team is Russell Westbrook, Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic. Your All-NBA second team, James Harden, John Wall, Blake Griffin, Paul George, and Anthony Davis. Your All-NBA third team, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid. Your All-Defensive first team is Victor Oladipo, John Wall, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis. Your All-Defensive second team is Jimmy Butler, Russell Westbrook, Draymond Green, LeBron James, and Rudy Gobert. And your All-Rookie first team, DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Colin Sexton, and Marvin Bagley III. Your All-Rookie second team, Jaren Jackson Jr., Wendell Carter Jr., Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Mo Bamba, and Kevin Knox. Alright, so looking at the playoff picture, it looks to be complete chaos. So over in the West, the Eastern Conference movers have actually made a very considerable dent. So Golden State actually did retake number 1, OKC is still number 2, and Houston is number 3. But then it's the Bucks, the Wizards, the Heat, the Pacers, and the Pistons. So while the top 3 of the Western Conference is still there, the rest of them is Eastern Conference. And keep in mind, we didn't take all the playoff teams, we just took the middle ones. So that tells you something. Over in the Eastern Conference, the 76ers are the comfortable conference lead. After all, Brett Brown was Coach of the Year. And then you have the Nuggets actually making the 2nd seed. Toronto did manage to put things together and move up to 3rd, and the Celtics are 4th. But then you have the Pelicans at 5, the Spurs at 6, the Lakers at 7, and the Timberwolves at 8. So this is one very interesting playoff picture here. Let's take a look at the standings and see how we got there. So you can see it was very close between the Warriors and the Thunder. It was just one game that separated them. And one thing to note is that the Warriors actually had a couple of 5-game losing streaks in the second half of the season, which is very uncharacteristic of them. So you have to say that, the Thunder could have actually taken the lead, but it would not have been likely. And the Rockets are pretty comfortable in that 3 spot. And then you have the Bucks and the Wizards all doing a little bit better than they normally did. The Heat definitely came up big. Same with the Pacers and the Pistons. So it's good to see them in the playoffs, especially after so many years of what felt like mediocrity. The Blazers once again kind of fell off. The Kings did better than expected. And the Suns definitely did better than expected. But again, this playoff picture is pure chaos. Over in the East, it looks like everybody just did their best to play bigger than normal. The Raptors kind of fell off, but that's to be expected when the 76ers and the Nuggets kind of have surged and did very well. And then you also have the Pelicans and the Spurs and the Lakers and the Timberwolves and the Nets and the Cavaliers and the Clippers all doing way better than they did last season to some degree or another. So really the Eastern Conference looked to be completely competitive here. I don't know how much of that is attributed to the Western Conference moving over or just teams having made good moves and taking advantage of the opportunities that they're given, but it looked like this would have been a very exciting one to watch. In fact, I would almost say that people would have probably preferred to watch some of these Eastern Conference battles over the will they, won't they in the West, with the Warriors and the Thunder seesawing between 1 and 2. I am looking forward to seeing how these playoffs go, so let's go ahead and do that, see what happens in round 1. Obviously, we're going to have some very interesting matchups, but it looks like the Pistons are going to have their run cut short by a Golden State Warriors sweep. The the 76ers and the Pelicans advance over in the East, as do the Raptors and the Lakers, so it's going to be Toronto versus LeBron once again in the semifinals. Meanwhile, it is OKC versus the Heat, who actually triumphed over the Rockets, so we've got our first little bit of chaos over there. Let's go ahead and go with the next rounds, see if one of those teams can actually maintain that momentum, and it looks like the Heat are probably doing it. Now you have to remember that the Thunder traded Steven Adams to the Heat, and in exchange for Hassan Whiteside, and we were wondering if that move was going to sink them or help them prosper, and it looks like in this case, it sunk them. The Miami Heat advance in 6 games. The Warriors lose to the Wizards in 6 games. So this is going to be a very interesting potential series. Over on the West, it could be the Wizards or the Heat two teams that have not made it to the finals in recent memory. And then over on the other side, it is Philadelphia and Toronto. Pretty common picks right there. Let's see who actually manages to triumph in this case. And it looks like it's a pretty even battle over in the West, but the Wizards are going to run away with it and take it in 5 games, and they'll be going up against the 76ers. My money on this matchup is going to be on the Sixers, but it would be kind of nice to see the Wizards actually get a win. If any team deserves it, it's... Actually, if any team deserves it, it's really the Sixers. Hey, I trust the process. What can I say? And it looks like the Sixers are just going to run completely amok and get the sweep in the finals. Ben Simmons is your finals MVP, averaging a relatively modest 18.5 points, but also putting up 9 assists and 9 rebounds. Just a little bit shy of a triple-double average, so pretty nice to see, pretty well-deserved. So, all in all, I think this actually pretty much covers that the Eastern Conference is not quite as weak as any of us would like to admit. Now again, like I said, I don't blame anybody for thinking that the Eastern Conference was weak in previous years while LeBron was still there. He kind of cast a big shadow, as I mentioned at the very beginning in the intro. But now that he's not there, you do see that the East is a lot better than you might give it credit for. And I hope I've gotten to illustrate that a little bit with these experiments. We've got one more that I want to run, so let's get to it. Finally, we're just going to shuffle the NBA like playing cards. The even-ranked teams in each conference will swap with each other. So the number 2 teams will swap, then the number 4 teams, then the number 6, and so on. To be honest, this is mostly just to see what happens. It's possible that there might be some shifting at the top and bottom of the standings, but I figure the middle will stay the same and the NBA will be in order. At least as much as can be expected with such a fundamental conference realignment. Alright, here we go. So over in the East, the top 4 teams are pretty much what I expected. The Warriors, the Raptors, the Thunder, and the 76ers. But the New Orleans Pelicans actually are in the 5th seed. And even more surprisingly, the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons are 6 and 7, with the Timberwolves rounding things out over at 8, and the Atlanta Hawks, the Indiana Pacers, the Sacramento Kings, all pretty close by and still holding in there. The Milwaukee Bucks, on the other hand, seem to have fallen apart somehow, but hopefully they'll be able to put it back together in the second half of the season. Over in the West, it's a little bit more typical with the Rockets and the Celtics at 1 and 2, but the Hornets have broken through to actually be in the number 3 spot. The Trailblazers seem to have actually put things together well in this scenario as opposed to the other ones and are holding at 4, the Wizards at 5, the Nuggets at 6, the Lakers at 7, and the Jazz at 8, with the Spurs and the Nets and the Magic pretty much really close by. The Cavaliers, the Mavericks, the Heat, the Suns are performing about as what we expected here. Finally, we have some interesting things in All-Star voting for this scenario. Nikola Jokic and Nikola Vucevic are both projected to be stars at this point, and we also have LaMarcus Aldridge and Rudy Gobert as potential reserves. Kemba Walker is also potentially reserved over in the West. And then if we look over in the East, Mike Conley and Kyle Lowry are also potential vote getters in the backcourt. And yeah, so we probably will be seeing some different names in there. Granted, it's at the expense of some other potential first-timers, but it's kind of nice to see some different names here like LaMarcus, Rudy, Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry. These are names I don't really see in most of the run-throughs that I've done for anything, so this is actually coming as a very nice and pleasant surprise in my opinion. So with the release of this All-Star lineup, I actually learned something today. Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley are actually first-time All-Stars, which came as a surprise to me. I could have sworn both of them had been reserves at one point within the last few years, but I guess not. So, hey, congratulations to Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley. Good on you to make the All-Star game. Nikola Jokic and Nikola Vucevic are both starters, which is kind of interesting to see. Ben Simmons and Luka Doncic are also first-timers as well. So once again, Nikola Jokic wins MVP, averaging 22.5 points, just under 16 boards, and just under 8 assists to go with 1 steal and 1.5 blocks. Good numbers. Glad to see, again, what can be said that hasn't already been said earlier in this video. Luka Doncic is your Rookie of the Year with his usual stat line, 16.5 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 1 steal to go with pretty good numbers from the field. Chris Middleton is 6th Man of the Year. Again, I'm kind of surprised. I could have sworn he was starting, but whatever. 15.2 points, 4 boards, 4 assists off the bench. Good to see. Giannis Antetokounmpo is Defensive Player of the Year with 10 boards and 1.5 steals and 1.5 blocks to go with 21 points and 5 assists. Jonas Valanciunas once again wins Most Improved Player with the Grizzlies with 17 points and just under 12 boards. Good numbers for him in my opinion. Steve Kerr once again is Coach of the Year, leading the Warriors to a 65-17 record. Again, it's already been said. What else can I say? Your All-NBA first team is Russell Westbrook, Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic. Your All-NBA second team is James Harden, John Wall, Paul George, Kevin Durant, and DeMarcus Cousins. And your All-NBA third team is Kemba Walker, Damian Lillard, Blake Griffin, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Vucevic. Your All-Defensive first team is John Wall, Victor Oladipo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis. Your All-Defensive second team is Jimmy Butler, Drew Holiday, Draymond Green, LeBron James, and Rudy Gobert. And your All-Rookie first team is Luka Doncic, DeAndre Ayton, Trae Young, Colin Sexton, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And your All-Rookie second team is Jaren Jackson Jr., Marvin Bagley III, Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Bamba, and Kevin Knox. So taking a look at these playoff seedings, just how much pure chaos is it? Well, over in the West, the Rockets are the first seed, the Celtics are the second seed, and the Wizards are the third seed, which is a bit of a shock, and the Nuggets actually break through to 4, and then Utah's 5. Portland is 6, so they actually do manage to hold things together somewhat here. The Lakers are 7, and the Spurs are 8, so it's a very interesting split here. Over in the Eastern Conference, it's going to be a Warriors and Pelicans Western Conference matchup in the first round as 1 and 8. The 76ers are the second seed, going up against the Clippers at 7. The Raptors are the third seed, so representing the Eastern Conference pretty well, taking on the Chicago Bulls, who do keep their 6th seed. And the OKC Thunder fall to 4th and will be going up against the Timberwolves, who have actually rocketed up to 8th, or 5th, I mean. So it is very interesting and chaotic. I wonder what the standings actually will bear out to. The Warriors put together 65 wins over in the East, so they kind of just ran away with it like they do sometimes. The 76ers and the Raptors actually tied for their record, and the Thunder, again, kind of fell out there in the second half there. The Timberwolves actually did turn it up, which is how they managed to get to 5. The Bulls kind of held the form. The Clippers held the form. The New Orleans Pelicans have the 8th seed by a single game. The Bucks and the Hawks and the Pistons all could have gone there, so New Orleans had a good streak of luck there. The Pacers kind of fell off, which was kind of heartbreaking, but maybe it may have something to do with that trade that was made with Portland when they acquired CJ McCollum. Maybe that was the deal that sunk them. Who knows? Well, it'll depend to see how the Blazers actually advance. Over in the West, the Rockets pretty much do what the Rockets do, win 60 games and do well. The Celtics and the Wizards kind of held together, so there's a little bit more of a disparity in the rankings there. It's not quite as cut and dried, though. The Jazz and the Blazers have tied, and the Lakers and the Spurs have tied. The Cavaliers missed by just 1 game. The Hornets and the Mavericks missed by just 2. So again, that bottom seed is really kind of hard. It's 1 or 2 games away, and that's the difference between low playoff seed and low lottery odds. Alright, so we've talked a lot and at length. Let's see how these playoffs, play off, I guess. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how things go. The Nuggets look like they're about to sweep the Jazz, and they do. The Thunder take out the Timberwolves in 5 games. The Warriors took out the Pelicans in 5 games. So it's very interesting matchups. We have Houston versus Denver, and the Celtics versus the Trailblazers, and the Raptors versus the Clippers here in the semifinals. It'll be kind of interesting to see how things go here, but I anticipate not a lot. It looks like the Warriors are about to get swept. No, but they actually managed to hold on just a bit, and it's going to be the Thunder versus the Raptors in the East, and then Denver and Portland, 2 teams that we haven't seen in the finals in recent memory, over on the West. So once again, this is going to prove to be a very interesting matchup no matter which way the ball bounces here. So I'm looking more over at the West to see how that pans out. It looks like it's going to be the Blazers, but the Nuggets actually battle back and almost actually come back from a 3-1 deficit. So it's going to be the Toronto Raptors winning in 7 games against the Trailblazers in the NBA Finals. Wow, this is one of those things that I never would have seen coming, and the Raptors pretty much kind of clinch it. There was not really any doubt. Kyle Lowry is actually your Finals MVP, averaging only about 13 points, but coming up with 11 assists. So this is actually something I've noticed. Usually when a point guard that isn't Stephen Curry is Finals MVP, it's usually based off of their assist numbers rather than their points. But still, Finals MVP and a championship, who's going to complain, really? So, what we can conclude from all this, in as much as we can conclude anything from 4 run-throughs with the 2K Sim engine, is that the conferences are actually pretty balanced right now. But how much of that is the legitimate talent of the teams, and how much of that is the balancing of the 2K game? After all, the human side of all these equations can't really be simmed, and 2K's attempts at capturing the human side outside of my career, and to a lesser extent my GM, the less said about that, probably the better. Anyway, someone who has the time to watch more basketball than I do can probably answer the question of balance better than I can. I can think of at least a few YouTubers off the top of my head who could definitely do this. However, just because someone can do it better doesn't mean you can't at least try. Everyone's got to start somewhere, and part of getting better at something is practicing and performing after all. On that note, let's bring it in. If you made it through this video and the last one, thank you for sticking with me, because even that little bit can help build this team. If you want to help further, leave a like on this video, leave a comment, and very definitely subscribe to the channel and check out what comes next. I do NBA 2K content on Fridays, and I'm also streaming Kingdom Hearts 3 on most weekends, so if you like either of those things, Coach Max has got your back. That's all for now. Until next time, take care, y'all.